but I will get started just because we've got a lot to cover. So I am going to share my screen and get us going here. So while trying to keep admitting people, so we'll see how good my multitasking is. Okay, well, first of all, welcome. Those of you who've been in a few of these are seeing the same message here, but again, you are in, if you're wondering where you are, because I know some of you have been in several, we're talking more deeply about nonpartisanship, diversity, equity, and inclusion today. And again, our goal is to make this a regular opportunity for training and networking opportunities among leaders and members, hopefully to orient you all better to your roles. But I always want to make this caveat that we're not here to supersede anything you're doing at the local level. We just want to help you know more about what LWVUS and LWVMN have available for you, and also to encourage networking and to get ongoing feedback of how we can continue to help you all in your roles. So we're going to do our introductions a little different here today, and I want to introduce Shelley Colvin, who is our board chair for DEI. And what we've been doing for introductions is just to make it go quicker, I'll call your name. And if you could just unmute yourself when I call your name from the participant list and let us know your league that you're with. But Shelley was wanting you to think about the following. How has the horrific event of the murder of George Floyd affected the work of your local league? And so how has this affected your league, its activities? So when we call on you, if you have something to just very quickly share, maybe a word, a phrase, a short vignette of what has changed since George Floyd in your local league, please share that. And if you don't have anything to share, that is okay too. Just say pass and we'll go on. So I will be admitting people here and might have to explain that again, but why don't we start with Shelley? You can be our model if you want to introduce your league and a word or phrase of how your life has changed, how the league has changed. Try to make it, kind of tied to league. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I'm from the League of Women Voters St. Louis Park. We are at our program meeting, even this August, DEI is right on top or near the top of what people wanted to see in programming. Again, we're going to, I think we're up in October, the committee's got to get ready. But the year before that, it was interesting because our sharing, it was I think deeper people. I think it had just risen to the surface. Thanks though for asking, Michelle.
Yeah. Risen to the surface is a really good reflection there. Great. Kathleen Peterson, can you let us know where your league, if you're just joining us, we're asking you to let us know what your league is, and also a short phrase or word or comments about how the murder of George Floyd has affected your work in the league.
Okay, I'm Kathy Pedersen. I'm with the League of Women Voters, Crystal, New Hope, East Plymouth, and Robbinsdale. It rolls off my tongue very easily. I'm not sure anybody else's, but when we heard about, we had a lot of discussion, obviously, based upon George Floyd, but we created automatically a DEI committee, and we felt that it was necessary to become more advocates for the issue at hand. And so we are now, I believe it's out on your site, but the league has also created a get-together of people to talk about DEI issues that we are sponsoring. And also our committee is meeting with human rights folks and city managers in each of our critical cities to talk about what kinds of projects or activities they're doing regarding policing. We've talked with police chiefs, that sort of thing. So we've been busy, and
Thanks.
a word, yeah.
Yeah, we will reference your group too as we move along. Thanks.
All right, great.
Great. Barb Anderson.
Hi, I'm from Roseville Area League, and I guess the one word I would use is focus. That we've just been trying to focus in our programming and our communications more on DEI.
Wonderful. Great word. Barb Memory.
I'm from the White Bear Lake Area League, and last January, we had a book study on racial awareness, and we have had a program on policing, and we're going to have 2 more such programs in this coming program year.
Awesome.
So I would say study and awareness.
Great. Excellent. Barb Baraney.
Hi, I'm from Roseville area, and just to add to Barb Anderson's comment, our board is now considering adding wording to our policies and procedures that DEI should be considered in all board decisions.
Excellent. April Horn, April and Colleen, if you came in, I think a little late, but we're just saying our league name and a key word or phrase of what's happened since the murder of George Floyd in your league. So let's do April Horn. If you're able to unmute yourself, I can't see people really well when my screen is shared, but. Well, we'll go to Colleen Feige, and April, when you find unmute, come on if you want to. Yep.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm with Edina, and last summer we established a Racial Justice Action Committee, and we have presented many events to our community around that. We have seen a big increase in the number of members that are interested in this, both joining the league and being a part of this Racial Justice Action Committee. And also, we've developed a lot of partnerships with other groups in our community. And we are undertaking a study to look at organizations in Edina and how they may contribute, or what they can do to change systemic racism and so forth. Thank you. More than a phrase.
Yeah, no, that's great. Carol Barclay. Carol's been on every one I've done so far, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to unmute. I'm in Brooklyn Park, Osseo, Maple Grove, and I have been a part of the new group that is meeting that was coordinated by Crystal, etc. And I am looking forward to bringing this into our, as an action into our league. We've got some irons in the fire. We're looking forward to making some decisions that will help us accommodate the DEI initiative.
Fabulous. Carolyn Dobler.
I'm going to pass.
Okay, no problem.
I see there's a couple of other people in my league on the call, so I'll let them do it.
Good. Dee Voldal.
I am in Rochester, and I am also going to pass.
All right. Elaine Savick.
I am in St. Louis Park with Shelley, who has been leading on DEI for quite a while, so I will just defer to her.
All right, very good. Welcome to all of you. Jan Forkrud.
We had done the Waking Up White book study January 2020. So I'm just thinking, boy, that was before everything kind of changed, but and that was good. As historically here in Wilmer, we've had the other communities that really our league members tend to be members in other things too that have really tried hard to work with both the Hispanic community and the Somali community here. But I think what we've talked about since is, and I appreciate what the league did right after George Floyd, that we aren't the answer people. We're the support people. We're letting others lead, or letting people from the communities we want to work with lead. And that's what we're struggling to figure out now.
Awesome.
And build those things.
Great. Jean Rainbow.
Hi, yeah, I'm kind of new to the Golden Valley League, but I just think that what happened with George Floyd created a lot more urgency and relevance regarding DEI issues. Our league, I don't know how many people know Rose McGee with the sweet potato pie fame, but she led a story circle before George Floyd died. And we discussed the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, in that group. Before that, and since then, there was another meeting with the group. It was another story circle of women of color talking about how race has affected their work. So I'm not sure what the future plans are, but it all just seems very relevant.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jean. Linda Witte.
Yeah, I'm Linda Witte, and I'm with the St. Peter Area League, and we're using a DEI framework to inform our questions that we're using for our upcoming candidate forums.
Wonderful. Great. Lynn Marcus.
I'm with Woodbury Cottage Grove Area League of Women Voters, and we've been involved in a number of podcasts, such as Seeing White, which is great, on DEI and book club. And we have a study ongoing to look at the DEI implications of hiring practices in Woodbury, Cottage Grove, Newport, and St. Paul Park.
Wow, awesome. Michelle Jane.
Yes, so I'm on the DEI committee for the Crystal, New Hope, East Plymouth, Robbinsdale League. And we actually started our journey a little bit in February when we made a presentation to the Hennepin County Race Equity Advisory Council. And the big thing there was talking about connecting policy with action, and that has been our focus since.
Wonderful. Marjorie Johnson.
I'm with St. Peter Area League of Women Voters. What popped into my mind when you brought the topic up, I think that maybe around the time George Floyd incident occurred, we had been aware of it, but not like it was after that. The partisanship that's involved in almost any issue that comes up, and how hard it is to stay nonpartisan when that's always at the forefront. But anyway, that kind of triggered the realization, at least for me.
Awesome. Yes, very good. Peg DeBoard.
Yeah, I'm from South Tonka. We're starting to just collaborate with a couple of local churches on some DEI issues, as well as we are really interested in joining the DEI roundtable that was started by the Crystal New Hope etc. group. So hoping to learn more and trying to figure out what we can do.
Great. Rebecca Hawthorne.
Wayzata Plymouth Area League, I think our word is launch. With our annual meeting this year, our league launched our local DEI statement. We convened a group of community partners around racially restricted covenants and working to move our cities towards joining the Just Deeds Coalition. We launched a book club, and we also have engaged with training. We had a great training last night taught by Interfaith Outreach and Community Partners in Plymouth, giving us the history and the demographics and the impact of inequity in our communities.
Awesome. Rita Mills.
The word Roseville area, the word I'd share would be study. and urgency, because in June 2020, we had 2 brand new league members that came forward and wanted to spearhead a study entitled Equitable Representation on Appointed City Boards and Commissions. And we've wrapped it up in 1 year. And tonight I do the first presentation to one of the cities, Little Canada.
Wow, awesome. Great. Sue Dosal.
I'm also with the Wayzata Plymouth Area League, and I would say major focus is the phrase, and Rebecca has already covered it all. So thank you.
Awesome. Sandy Grand Mason.
Hi, everyone. I'm from Duluth, the Duluth League. We've been involved in DEI work for actually a few years now. But since the George Floyd event, we are in very close contact with the local NAACP chapter here in Duluth, and we continue to be working with them. We're also involved with a local police accountability group, a group called Surge, which is standing up for racial justice, which is really made up of white people educating us as white people how to do this. We've done some bystander and intervention training with regard to the Asian American advocacy and justice. We read, studied, and presented to our entire league the House Select Committee on Racial Justice report to the state legislature. We've done a lot of reading. Okay, there's probably more things that I'm forgetting, but that's it.
Wow, awesome. And Amy Perna from St. Paul, I know I saw you joined us. We're just announcing the league we're from and any words or phrases, what's happening post George Floyd in your local league. I know I see you're on there, Amy, if you're able to jump in, otherwise we'll catch you later. All right, so I am blown away. I don't know about you all, but we clearly are done now. We don't need this workshop today because you all have figured out how to put DEI into practice, right? This is amazing. The list, I was not expecting it. I ran out of paper and everything. So listen to these words, collaboration, partnerships, podcasts, focus, study, urgency, equity, community outreach, relevance, candidate forum, DEI lenses, policies and procedures changed, new networks, member growth, and on and on. I mean, this is really impressive and something for us to take in and be proud of that that we did. Everybody is reacting, and this is what it takes. Because imagine all the other groups, all the other work that's going on in our communities tied to this. It's a hopeful moment. I just want to take that in for a minute. I always like to feel a little hope as we go forward. Thank you all for that sharing, and what a great idea, Shelley, to start off with that sharing and see how far we're already come. So what we're doing today is, as Shelley will walk through, there's really like 2 frequent questions that keep coming in from league members. How do I make my league itself more diverse? And how can my league move from DEI education to DEI activism? I think we heard a lot today, right, about DEI education to DEI activism. We're getting there, working on it. But that other question of how then how are we more welcoming, inclusive, and have a sense of belonging among our communities. So we're going to look at 5 areas today. One quickly is the DEI lens, our governance structure, the resources out there, the importance of partnerships and networking that's going on. And I wanted to quickly just throw up the slide again. The idea behind the DEI lens is something that we have worked with our Second Century Task Force and our board as a whole, to be very clear that our lenses for doing all of our work to empower voters and defending democracy are about being purposeful with our league ways, but also being inclusive, culturally competent, listening and amplifying diverse voices, inviting and welcoming diverse people, and seeking out and building enduring partnerships. So those are things we want to continue to remember and for our state league have put into our priority statement. So I now want Shelley to take a moment to talk about the DEI lens. What is a DEI lens? What are we, how does that all shape up? And then we'll walk through some more of our resources. Go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah, I also was very impressed, and part of my job on the board as DEI chair, the state board, is to be a cheerleader, and all the work that you do, and help with perhaps some resources, or to cheer on some of the resources you found and quickly scribble them myself and take note of them. So that's part of my job. So the DI values are not siloed. I think that's kind of going away some, particularly when hearing your statements about what's been the years been like since George Floyd was murdered. So our job is to find that great speaker, and that job, the wonderful, inspiring TED Talks or documentaries or what have you. There are wonderful, wonderful ones, and I do recommend that you use them. Or find just the right book to read and discuss. And right now I'll throw in the fact that I've done 2 big reads, and that was statewide. There is we have a Facebook page, and we'll probably do another one soon. I'll unveil that soon. I wanted relevant to where we're at, but I just wanted to put a plug in for that just right book to read, discuss. But it is important that we realize and what we see, that all of our league work is to be seen through a lens of DEI. And when I first heard that, it was, oh yeah, that's good. That's what we want to do. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, but a lens, that we put that in front of everybody, in front of the organization, but it was kind of very amorphous, and so I was very, very glad to see when the League of Women Voters United States US had put together a list of questions that can be asked of every project, program, and activity. The questions that we've got here are actually and it's only this list that they've got on there, and you can go into the resources, and maybe as we wiggle around the resource, we might happen upon it, we might not, but it's in there. But these are more or less the heads of little sections. Though the whole thing's about 1.5 pages, so it's not hard. And some of the questions are sort of no-brainers, but when you put them in when you actually ask them before you're going to do a project, it makes it powerful. The ones that, who's involved, will be impacted, stakeholders, what are the intended and unintended outcomes? The unintended are kind of interesting. Really think through that, because, I over and over with projects, you go, oh my goodness. So that's a good, does it line with our vision for an equitable and inclusive organization? And I know at the state, from what that matrix or graph that Michelle had just put up, that's that piece. Does it fit in there? And then what changes can be made to make this more equitable? After you go through this process, okay, I get this lens now, and that makes it, I get it. I see where that little piece that maybe there's somebody that we should be talking to. Maybe there's a resource we hadn't thought about, and we maybe should get that in there. So just wanted to share that. Next piece is governance. And you know about governance, it really seems when you sit on a board, that's part of your responsibility and your governance. I mean, that's boring. But it's not. What it does is it lays out what's very, very important. It undergirds our work and emphasizes that importance. Okay, maybe some of you, a couple of you, I don't know, were in June of 2020, the US, League of Women Voters US, their convention, and it was wild. It was when Zoom had just started. There were about 2,000 people on that call. And we were wiggling around on that one, but it's a new policy about DEI. And it follows the one on nonpartisanship in the bylaws. And one thing that we all need to do, if we haven't yet, many leagues have, but if you haven't yet, is you need to insert those in your bylaws. The first part of everyone's bylaws have to look the same. And Article 2 was the purposes and policies. It used to just have the nonpartisanship, and we will talk about that. So we're going to talk about both of these policies. But the second, they put it way up there, diversity, equity, inclusion, got it in bold there. The league is fully committed to ensure compliance in principle and practice. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Now there's also a policy out there. This is it says policy, but this points toward the actual policy. So think about that. If you have questions about that and what that means, talk to somebody at the state. We'll help you. Okay. Resources. Now this is where I'd like to just wind, and many of you have discovered what's there to offer. Perhaps some of you haven't. We offer so much in this section of resources. And I know I sometimes scroll through not just ours, but the other resources in the section. But we do have a resource list. One of the things I try to do is to keep it so that it's not too long, because that way, they're supposed to be recommendations or books that need to be out there and popular. And also it's a goal to make them about various diversities around DEI, because DEI very strong is race justice, but there is LGBTQ, the initials. It's about ableness. It's there's a whole list of neurodiversity, and so I want to get a mix of all of that. Even with racial justice, we have our indigenous communities. We have the largest population of Somali individuals outside of Somalia in the state of Minnesota. They are just a strong piece of our population. I do have a couple books on there. I've got a couple more I'd like to add. I'm at a point now where I am going to add some pieces. And so I thought I had added Cast. I know a lot of you have read that and looked at it, by Isabel Wilkerson, but that will probably go up there. A lot of people have looked at that. We're very, very aware now of the Hmong community. Any of you that have watched the Olympics, and I know I was kind of glued to the TV a little bit on that, but even if you didn't, if you watched the news, the Hmong community, and I think we have the largest Hmong population outside of Laos and the Vietnam area. But I found a new book on Hmong in Minnesota. It's put out by the History Museum of Minnesota, people of Minnesota. It's actually 3 or 4 years old, I think, but it's very, very good. In fact, the History Museum has lots of stuff that involve diversity and communities within our state. One that's on our list is From Somalia to Snow, How Central Minnesota Became Home to Somalis. Recommend that book. one of the women who was she was on the Women's March. She was co-organizer. We are not here to bystanders. Linda Sorsauer, she is Somali. Okay, that's our list. Michelle, let's take a peek at the US.
Yeah, so I wanted to also kind of remind you of how we got here, right? So my general spiel on everything is if you have not been to our member resources list, you don't know all the great things we have. So be sure to find under our webpage, under local leagues, member resources is the one place we put absolutely everything you will need to find. And on there, we do have under league admin, our diversity, equity, and inclusion links. Those were those resources that we were just scrolling through. And we also have our DEI policy here. And then we also have LWVUS, which has their articles, books. They have so much, just like we have. There's and Shelley is, I had a lot of good ideas too about, the idea is there's a lot here, right? And there's a lot you can't get to it all. But what you can do is look at the idea of putting some things together, right? Just to say, gosh, let's read an article or do a short webinar. I mean, you could use these kinds of resources for a program. There's just so much there to build into DEI programming. The webinars from LWVUS are really powerful, and they keep doing things. So you want to stay in touch with them as well. So,
Michelle, go.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shelley.
I'm going to say, if you can go to at some point, if we're ready, when we're ready, to the US site under management, and we'll flip to DI. But we're still on our site, we do have TED Talks on there. We do have some small clips. There's one on talking to families talking about race with each other. Those are good. They make good league programs when you want but an evening of conversation. I think those are the most powerful ones that I attend. But it looks like we're here.
Yeah.
If
So
we get under that league,
the league
top right
can be kind of hard to navigate, but if you go to league management and then that diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yep.
All right. Yeah. They finally put that on there. That's new in the last few months, like within the last 6 months. The stuff was a little bit scattered. They have things under. Okay, there's that lens.
Questions. Yeah, more questions, more nuances to those questions. Yeah, that's great.
Those heads were the ones that I highlighted. They have they have the policy. They have definitions. They have guidance. They have resource
and gender
when
guidance.
you look. And then there's an election preparation toolkit, recruiting and building strong. There's just all sorts of that kind of thing. There's diversity, continued learning. With the webinars, Michelle had mentioned those. They are powerful. They're once a month, though they skipped a month this summer. Topics. They'll give you the topics ahead of time. You can register. You just go on there and you just do that fast registration. They send you the link. And there's discussion usually, as well as presentation on the topic. But then within a day or two, Christine Davis, who's from the US that puts those together, she not only puts the recording that you can listen to or share it, say with the rest of your league. Maybe it's a good evening, program or daytime, afternoon, where you could look at one of the webinars and have a discussion. But under those, there's always more resources. So she always adds this list. So there's always this continued, oh, I could read this, I could see this under each one of those webinars. Okay, networking resources. Networking again. You know, when you think back to those two questions, and we had those, and they're questions I know at St. Louis Park that we really pondered. How can we be more diverse? What can we do? I know we're reading. I know we're trying to understand all this. How do we, well, networking is one of those pieces. And all you folks that were introducing yourself from CNHEPR, and Michelle Jane, who's membership chair, and she introduced herself. She is just I just think she's wonderful. The research she puts into DEI and membership in general for her league is just outstanding. And this roundtable, it's met twice. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the first one. It's next Monday night at 6:30, but you need to register because you need the link. It's the link piece. You can go onto the League of Women Voters Minnesota website under events to register. And it's just, the sharing is incredible. Their DEI chair, Sheila Webb, she is a fantastic facilitator. She's had a lot of experience in her job life. She's actually on the council in Robbinsdale. And so they're just very good. Partnerships, that sounds like something you know about, Michelle.
Yeah, so the other thing when we think about it is just looking around at partnerships, new people we can get together with to do programming, candidate forums. There's no shortage. And I brought this up because the League of Women Voters plays a lead role in the policy area around Restore the Vote. Again, restoring the rights of recently released felons. And when you look at this, the people who are involved, look at this list. I mean, it is filled with organizations. Every time I see it, I'm even more sad that we can't get Restore the Vote passed, given all this support. But the point is there are so many organizations around us that are doing things that we're not doing or look different than we look. If every league took just one or found one organization that was different to do something with, could be hold a program, a forum. Imagine again the kind of partnerships that would be developed, and then try to continue to work with those. An example for us would be our relationship with the Council of American Islamic Relations. We did a lawsuit together, right, against this Atlas Aegis group that was trying to put armed guards at our polls. And we really got to know each other. So now we're doing more together. We're doing mapping together. We're, Jaylani Hussein and I are staying in touch and trying to build a deeper relationship. So that's been really great. And as a state, and this is another really big opportunity for all of you as we continue to go through redistricting, are the mapping sessions. Mapping is going on. I mean, it's huge. So these are maps right now that have been drawn with the input of communities. Paul Huffman's putting his whole life into this, but others as well, all of the wonderful people participating through our Maps Minnesota and the groups that have come forward and received grants that are identifying what their community of color, communities of interest are. So you'll see, and this I'm gonna, also Carol Barclay, and Carolee Nord and BPOMG this was great because, a lot of these people are doing their own mapping, but they made this connection with ACER in Brooklyn Center. And they're like, hey, we could do some more things in the future. So this is another place for us to look in our own community. If you're in Northfield, wow, Voices for Racial Justice. Where are they in Northfield? This is great. Let's work together. We actually, Bemidji, the Native American Community Development Institute in Bemidji, Paul went up there and did mapping with them. Now, these are all being led by the people of color themselves to that point, but we're doing the technical mapping. But again, we're getting to know people. We're getting to like have phone numbers, right? And call them up and go, we want to do something with you again. And we actually submitted testimony for the testimony up in Bemidji to say, we support what the Native American community had to say. So look at all these maps. I mean, there's even more. So it's an exciting time to think about and have access to and think about how to build just even one more partnership in your community. All right, and then before we get into nonpartisanship, Shelley, did you want to say a little bit more about our stories and the importance of story?
Well, I think our stories are very important. It's what draws people to our leagues. They hear a story of what we're doing. We're caught in by story, our lives, we live by story. I'm intrigued by narrative and story. I guess I've been accused of being a voracious reader. Well, I am, and I love to read story. But what I wanted to do is, you've said a couple of words around your own stories. Well, I've got one from St. Louis Park, and it's just one small/big way that you can make a difference in your own community. And that is last February, and I told you that, when we usually look at our programming. We talked about it before then, but in August we kind of map out a broad map. And some of the things we do every year, of course, forums and legislative interviews, and all those are stuck in there. And then what else do we want to do? And last February, the DI committee was, we were to look at a story. And yeah, somebody had a question?
No, we're okay.
Any rate, one of that we in our committee, in some reading, our premise was that talking about race in family is very, very important. And I know that I thought when I was raising my son that, he's too young to talk to about race when he gets a little older. And he was going to a school that was very diverse. And I thought, well, he'll, just observe, and they'll be, well, indeed, it's family conversations, and very deliberate conversations. And we read articles by psychologists, by all sorts of experts in the area. And there was one that said, even by the age of 3, that a lot of our values are put in place, at least the broad out. What is our culture about? What does our family consider important? How do we do things? I mean, ladies are just collecting this information right and left. And so we looked at, and was a program also in one of the elementary schools by 2 teachers. And we knew that, and they had won our Human Rights Award a couple of years back. That kind of brought it to the surface as well for us. But at any rate, we put on a program talking about, we read a children's book at it. We talked about what I'm just saying. But then we thought, okay, what's an action that we can do that's associated with that? And we decided that we would put together book bundles for daycares in the St. Louis Park area. And we'd lend them to them. We've got 2 bundles we're putting together. And in fact, we're contacting these daycares and explaining what we had learned and sharing some books perhaps that they could, that they actually could read to the kids at their daycare. Now, right here, I've got 3 books quickly. The Proudest Blue, that's by a little girl in her hijab. Hair Love. Now these are picture books. These are the kind that you read to toddlers. Hair Love. And then there was another one called Fry Bread. And so those are just, we have a whole list. If you go on our website, that's digging, I know, but we do have a list of whole list of books to share with children and also adults. But anyway, that was something that we found very meaningful last year to do under DEI that we thought was important and something that we could learn about and then do something about. So that's my story. And a little later, I hope we've heard hints at a couple, but I hope we get a little bit more on others.
Thanks, Shelley. So yeah, so as we kind of wind up, and we'll take some questions before we get into nonpartisanship, but a few things. Shelley, you were talking about Zoom, and this is the other piece that plays a part of our ability to actually be more involved within DEI, to reach more people, include more people. As Shelley talked about, we still can have a sense of belonging, and the importance of bringing a sense of belonging by involving people in all these aspects of our work. One other quick thing Shelley had pointed out too before is and I think I can't remember now who mentioned it, the challenge of being allies. I think Jan Forkrud, you were talking about this too, that it's not always about us doing it all, but us being allies with those who are leading in our communities. And, you've seen a lot of that from Virginia Case at our executive at the US level, being an ally with groups. And they also have a really good resource. You keep hearing the word resource, but again, this is a really good how to be good allies when protesting in solidarity with the Black community. This came up during a lot of the BLM rallies. And so there's really, really good stuff here. We'll give you links to all this. Please don't worry. The entire slide deck today, every link I'm showing you, and the slide stuff will come in a follow-up email to you. So there's a lot happening out there, and clearly a lot of you are already practicing a lot of this, which is really exciting. So a lot there. We want to talk a little bit more about nonpartisanship before we break for our conversation a little deeper. But are there any questions that anybody has at this moment before I just do kind of a 10-minute deep dive on our nonpartisanship? It's hard when I'm sharing my screen to see, so just blurt out if you've got something. All right.
Where was the information that you just went flipping?
Oh yeah, no, I will send you. Yeah,
on
no
the
worries,
allies.
Carol. The allies piece is something I will send you the link on the allies, because that's
okay.
You will get this slide deck, and it is linked into the slide deck. So you
okay.
will be in good shape to see that.
Okay, I'm very interested in that part.
Yeah, and that is a complex.
Thank you.
We could probably have a whole seminar on what that looks like.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. We're kind of touching the surface here. But before we get to more questions and sharing, I did want to, one of the things that we're going to share with you are these 2 slide decks that are not linked on our website at this moment, but we will share them with you. The National Council did a really awesome job of they have both a DEI one and a nonpartisanship one of giving really good language and clarity around a lot of the things we're talking about. I am going to walk through the nonpartisan one, which does touch on DEI. And again, a lot of this, as we've talked about, is really, where our lives have changed and a lot in the last 5 years. And trying to come up with the right words, figure out the right strategies can be really challenging. So they did a really nice job of I'm going to walk through some of the highlights of this presentation from Council. A lot of it is about the language, right? What does it mean? We all struggle with this, but a reminder that nonpartisan doesn't mean non-political. We all know that. Democracy is not partisan. Issues are not partisan. Facts are not partisan. So we want to continue in our mission to use the good words and realize these are not partisan words. some of the do's and don'ts they talk about is really leaning into those LWV positions. You know, we have so many positions, and we always say positions are not partisan. They are a point of view that we've studied and we've agreed on as a body, a membership body. That is not, it may be political, but not partisan. And the main thing is the don't, right? Directly agree with or oppose candidates or parties. Candidates are different from elected officials. And this is where I really want to spend a minute. This is a really great distinction. If you get nothing else out of nonpartisanship today, I would love for you to think about this. So timing matters here, and that is what's important. Right now, an example, we participated in, for our climate change, we participated in the WALS climate report card, and with a lot of environmental and racial justice partners. And we provided some critique, to Governor Walz on sort of, gave him grades as a good teacher, how he was doing on the environment. A really great piece of advocacy. It's not shaming or blaming, but just simply saying, here's what we think you should be doing and how well you're doing and what you can do next. Well, I interestingly got a lot of people, a lot of league members who sort of said, well, why are you criticizing the governor? We don't say bad things about the governor, or whatever it is. And it was like, the point there is that, he has a job, right? So all of our elected officials have a job to do. And that is our advocacy, is to hold them accountable for the job they do according to our positions. That is our advocacy. Now, if the governor had been filed for re-election, if the Walz climate report card had come out in, let's say he's running for re-election in 2022, and and he is not part of a primary, so let's say the deadline is next June, and now he's a candidate, we would not have participated in that advocacy, because now he's a candidate. And that has been a real challenge with Secretary of State, right? Because the Secretary of State is Steve Simon's doing his job. But once he declares his candidacy, we've had to remind leagues, you really shouldn't have him out to talk about voting even. And it feels unnatural during a big voting season to not have your Secretary of State out. But that has been an issue to say, while when they're a declared candidate, and declared meaning they filed and the filing date is closed and they're now a formal candidate, we need to be more careful. So that's something that we will do a better job too of helping to remind you in candidate season, when to be an advocate with our officials. So I know that, does anybody have any questions about that? I'm hoping this can provide some clarity. So the attacks, when and how to push back, when not to. These are hard things, right? I'm going to get to some of the meatier slides when we talk about social media. And this is really the big thing. Don't feed the trolls, is what LWVUS likes to tell us. Don't argue with things you don't agree with. It's really, all it does is when somebody goes on Twitter, any social media site, the rise of their social media raises in stature when people comment. So we don't want, when people say stupid, crazy things, don't comment on social media to them, because it just gives them more ammunition, so to speak. So that is a really good thing, because when we read bad things, we want to just get out there and tweet away. And it's like, don't, just let it go. As you're seeing, we had 2 more suspensions this week from the companies themselves. I believe we had 2 more people denied. YouTube, I think Marjorie Taylor was taken off of, I'm trying to remember if she was Twitter, and Rand Paul over YouTube over their false vaccine claims. So those groups they're facing some accountability for the lies that are being told. The other thing a lot of people ask us about is yourself as a person. What about my private account? We all are voters and citizens first before we are league members. But obviously, if we are a member, and especially if we are a leader, and or in my case, a staff member, you really want to be cognizant of that. and really being mindful. I mean, you know better than anyone, hopefully, that anything you say and do on social media is around forever. So you want to be very careful, but you could do things like views represented here do not reflect those of LWV. But it is something to think about. Do I really need to put this up on the social media or not? So it's okay to retweet politicians when their tweets align with our advocacy. Again, somebody's like, we're excited, there's a bipartisan bill or there's a voting rights bill. Yay. It's okay to have our own political opinions, but be careful if they differ from ours. So if you're going to really go after, differ with something, be thoughtful about that. Tagging, calling on politicians to take action is okay. But what is not okay is to respond to politicians directly, to try to engage them directly on social media. We usually don't do that. Calling out a party as being good or bad. Now, this one is a really good point, because when we had in January, when the state wrote our letter, Truth or Consequences, we called out 14 members of our Minnesota legislation for their wanting to sign on to the Texas Attorney General lawsuit that would have challenged the election results. And they actually were citing our Secretary of State with outright illegal action. Or illegal activity. They weren't alleging it, they were citing it. So there were several pieces of misinformation in there, and we did call them out by name. Now, they all happened to be Republican. So I had some members say, well, wasn't that partisan? I was like, well, these are elected officials and we're saying who they are. We're saying what they did. We're saying why we don't want to. So it is not a partisan act to call out somebody because of their party. I mean, everyone naturally has a party, right? There's no way around that. So that's really good. I'm looking at a question here. Does this pertain to federal and state politicians or also local political campaigns? All of this stuff is really for everyone. We want to think about, it's certainly always fine to call someone out when they're an elected official. That's what advocacy is. You're an elected official, and if you have a position, we're trying to influence you. And if you do something we don't like, we're happy to tell you that. Or if you do something you do like, we're happy to tell you that. But we don't want to ever, but when they're a candidate, we're far more careful about what we do because we don't want to get into that space. And that's a really good kind of way to think about it. And then you don't want to retweet or share a political party's post. This has always been a challenge too, right? In nonpartisanship is that, like right now, I know I get invited all the time to DFL related things with the league. But if it is a fundraiser or if it's done by the party, we don't go. There are these areas like, for example, a lot of the DFL senior caucuses were having people come and talk about redistricting. And it's like, well, it's done by the DFL caucus. Should we go if it's a political party? So what we say is if something is sponsored by a party, but is open to the public, to the general public, and you are delivering an educational point of view, that really can be fine. But if it's done just for the specific party, then it's something we wouldn't recommend. So if you can kind of think in your head, and there is actually a little graph here as we go down that helps you kind of, a little flow chart that they did to help you think through this. So again, election season on social media, this is, you really want to be more careful is the point to when people are candidates. I like this slide here, being political but not partisan on social media. So here's President Biden talking about our democracy, retweeting a politician when he's not a candidate now. This tweet aligns with our advocacy. We can't sit idly by. While democracy is in peril here in America, blah, blah, blah. He's not a candidate, he's the president. We agree, we could retweet that. The second one calls on politicians to take action aligned with our advocacy. Appropriate to say, to retweet, we want you to, sign on to these policies. That is appropriate. And that does not call out a party as a whole. So here's from Arizona to Georgia. Voters turned out in record numbers in 2020 to choose our lawmakers. Now lawmakers are trying to choose who votes. The Senate must pass for the People Act. So if that tweet had said, bad Republican Party of Arizona who's hiring all those ninjas, that would not be inappropriate. We don't want to call out the party per se, but we can always talk about these actions. So I know there's some nuances there, and we always welcome you to call us if you're really concerned or worried, but I think this helps, if in my mind, and I hope it helps you. I'm going to scroll down quickly. We've talked about a lot of these things because I want to, and there's that lens. We talked about the questions, but I want to get to some of these again. This sort of reiterates what we're saying. It's okay to engage elected officials to advance our advocacy priorities, right? Joint press conferences, being with elected officials, speaking at events, participating in rallies, all of these things. And it's the bigger one is it's not okay to focus your remarks on a specific elected official, give an elected official a league award when they're running for re-election, mention any federal official running for office in public communications. The federal things are even more important because of the FCC guidelines. But to Rebecca's question about local, it should be the same. If you have local people like now, our local races, a lot of them don't have to declare their candidacy until as late as August. So like school board and city councils and those things. Well, August now, those candidates are declared, they're now candidates. They're not any longer elected officials in our head. So if you use that, is really helpful. I want to just get quickly, and then we'll get to this. The coalition and partnership is really hard. I know a lot of people always ask us all the time, can we do this with Indivisible? Can we do this with this group or that group? Again, the idea is that we want to be able to we want to work with people. Let's see if they had it here. But if they are endorsing candidates or endorsing parties, then we don't. It's more important during candidate season. Sometimes, let's say your Chamber of Commerce and they work with people, they endorse candidates during the election season. But when it's not the election season, you can be more bold in your partnerships if you're working on things. So it's that kind of thinking that we want to have. All right, I am going to scroll through because we're getting close to time to this final slide, which I think is really good. Remaining nonpartisan. So here's the little flow chart. Are you supporting or opposing an election official? Yes. Uh-oh, this is a partisan activity. But see, go down here. This is a fun little way of thinking. Well, are you partnering with the party? Well, yes. Uh-oh, this is partisan. Are you publicly opposing? So anyway, this is kind of a fun little grid here. So you guys will get this whole slide deck too, and you can always come to us. You can go to LWVUS too, but certainly feel free to come to us on these issues because they're big, I know. But I hope some of these things, I thought this was the best explanation I had seen in a long time of how to use nonpartisan lens, the separation of candidate from elected official, and that sort of framework of when and how we can work together with them and not. All right, so that gets us to sort of our sharing time with you guys. Questions, answers. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other. And I can see you if you want to use the raised hand function. I can see that now. Or if you don't have the raised hand function, just want to wave at me, I can see you all. So any questions for Shelley and I, and any thoughts and or sharing also for you all of things that are happening and working well in your local leagues? Yeah, Colleen.
Sorry, I had to unmute. At our strategic planning session in July, we had one of our members bring up the topic of how can we appear less partisan? And it was and the person described the concern, and we all agreed that regarding candidates and so forth, we are viewed as very nonpartisan. What we're not viewed as nonpartisan is in our positions. And in discussing that, we kind of came to the conclusion, maybe that's too strong a word, that the culture has changed. Our positions have been there sometimes for decades, but suddenly everything is considered partisan. I mean, voting rights, that really shouldn't be partisan, but some would consider it that. So does anyone have anything to add to that concern? Because I think that's one thing that we have to deal with. We're not considered partisan regarding candidates or forums or anything like that, but our positions. And we're not going to change our positions, but just something that came up at our planning meeting.
Yeah, Barb, memory?
I can't address that directly, but I just know that our leadership in our local league, almost every time there's an occasion where a leader will say, and we want conservative voices. We want to invite them to our picnic. We want to invite them to join us. So that's something that always gets my attention and makes me wonder, who would I invite? And would it be just on the same basis as you care about government, so join us? Or would it even go more to, we want diversity in our points of view?
Yeah, so great things. A couple of quick things, first to Colleen and then come back to Barb too, was that one of the things, I mean, I think you said it, and that's what we have to keep saying. Our positions are developed, right, through study and consensus of our league. They remain the same. We can't help whether one party or another likes them or doesn't like them. It's just calling that out. That is the way it is. When you look at our program for action on our website and you look at the dating of some of these policies, you can also see, I thought maybe we should do a little chart of how old some of these policies are. It is not, we have always been for sustainable energy since the 60s, so these are not, wacky doodle ideas, but so I think that is a big thing. And Barb, I think to your point of conservative voices, it was interesting to me that when we did our Minnesota Women's Suffrage Day, and I invited, we had a lot of diversity there. At our Women's Suffrage Day. And when we can find anything in common to talk about, let's get together and talk about it. The interesting thing there was I got a lot of feedback from Democrats who are unhappy with the fact that I had Republicans talking about it. So on both sides, I certainly have gotten more negative calls from Democrats than Republicans, for what it's worth. But I think they're probably paying more attention to us. But I think that look for those areas. And like you said, I think it's a great thing. The legislative interviews, I think something we really, really want to focus on a little bit more this next round. After candidates are elected, that opportunity of a fresh, new, newly elected group of whoever, school board, city council, state reps and senators, that's a great time to pull those people together, get to know them, say hello, introduce themselves, make those relationships early. It's also going to be a time with Vote 411. That would be another time when all these, we have 7,000 candidates and 4,600 races that we covered. That's a lot of people that we could, as local leagues, talk to and invite them to participate as conservative voices to get their information on our Vote 411. So those are some other ideas that we can really reach out to people, of different people. So I'm glad you asked that question, Barb, because I'd like to really, I think that is a real opportunity with us with Vote 411. Carol, you have your hand up.
Yes, my question is about the empty chair candidates forums.
Yep.
Has that changed? It says that it's not for certain levels of candidates, you would not have an empty chair. When can you? I'm still not clear on that. And I thought it was not at all, but evidently that's not true.
So empty chair policy, the only thing is that for the federal debates, for people who are candidates at the federal level, we have more strict rules for a variety of reasons. So, but otherwise our empty chair policy abides. The empty chair policy simply states that if you invite everybody and everybody doesn't show and there's only one person, you still can go forward with your forum. The thing that's really important, and I'm glad you brought this up, because this really, to me, gets to the heart of bias. I feel very, very strong about this notion that, what bias is exception. Right? Well, I want to make an exception. Why don't you make an exception? Well, that's bias, right? So one of the great things about our candidate forums that I think has made them stand up over these years has been the extreme rule. We have rules. Everyone's treated the same way. Now, we also know that the same way, sometimes you would say, if all of you have seen the kids at the gate, where the idea that equity and equality, these are all different things. But the idea here in this case is that all the candidates, everyone's invited, everyone's told the same rules, everyone follows the same rules. Now, the time to look at DEI is when we do the rules, right? So that is one of the things that we're doing now is when we look at voter service, are our rules for our candidate forums at all in perhaps jeopardizing our DEI? But once the rules are set and this goes forward, then we have to treat everyone the same. Now, we have had a couple of very high profile situations at the state league where some of you might remember where we had Representative Ilhan Omar couldn't make an event. So everyone was invited, everyone was treated the same, and she couldn't be there. So they gave her, the opportunity that was given to do the statement or whatever. And we got a lot of backlash for being not, and I'm just trying to say this in general, it really wasn't from Representative Ilhan Omar herself. But people were concerned that we were being, racist and excluding her from the candidate forum. So perception is a big thing, right? And so we certainly weren't. Now, if we had made an exception, like somebody said, well, she's a serving representative, and why don't you reschedule it? And, that's what bias is, right? If we start to make exceptions. But I think on that case, we learned two things. One is it's good to look at our rules. Like Shelley said in the beginning, the number one thing is governance. How are our rules and policies? And the same would be, I think, for candidate forums. Are there anything about our candidate forums and our rules now that are not friendly to diversity, equity, and inclusion? That's where we want to change things. And the empty chair policy is sort of is meant to be an equalizing principle, that not everybody wants to attend, but we want to give those who want to attend that opportunity to express themselves. So
when they don't attend, they don't then get pegged in with a statement.
There's usually, there's rules for that. They can still.
There's rules for that.
And we can talk offline because it's pretty.
Okay, that's all right.
Our policies.
Just the fact that there are rules. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I think this is where rules, I say this and I don't say it lightly. We really are, all of you, we're all individual little mini democracies. We're showcasing how democracy works and how great that is, as nuanced as it is of having rules and standards to follow and governance and procedures. This is what we want our government to be, and we are great role models of that. And I think that's why our candidate forums have shown up to still be very popular with all parties.
Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Any other questions, thoughts to share? Oh, Rita, you were asking about the number of races and candidates covered. Yeah, so the general thing is we covered in Vote 411, we literally had every single race with the exception of like 3 school districts where we could not lock down their final boundaries in order to put it into Vote 411 because they were so peculiar. So there were over 4,600 races and over 7,700 candidates. Throughout the state, including soil and water board. We went down to the low, to that level. And so all of those were reflected within Vote 411. Now, not everybody filled out their survey. And that's where this year we really, really want to do that. And this is a great spot for us, as we said, to honor diverse voices of all kinds is our ability to, we want to really work with our local leagues during Vote 411 this year, as well as interns. We're really working hard to get intern pool put together to be able to make sure that everybody, including conservatives, people of color, get into that Vote 411. We also, I was surprised, but it is true, we got contacted by several, especially at local levels, people who do not have the internet. And so we need a paper way for people to submit their information. So there's always new things to do and learn there. Rita, you had a question?
Actually, my question is more for the Crystal New Hope, the Monday night sessions, just a suggestion, if we could just focus one of those Monday night sessions on allyship, it would be kind of nice just to spend some time with it. Thank you.
That's a great idea. And it has been challenging. I want to say that for us with mapping, a really good sort of example with redistricting, we are part of a coalition, first of all, which is a great way to know you're an ally, is if you're with other people heading in the same direction. We are now all allies, but then allyship is now that we're all together going here. In mapping, we're really working with the campaign. They've identified communities of color, and they are taking the lead. So they are defining how the event is going to work and who they're going to invite. And then we are there as the technical assistants to do the mapping in Districtor. That is our sole role, is to be there, to have our computer, to take their input and put it up. And I think that's just been a terrific example. Normally we might jump in and let's go. And I know I'm a problem solver, right? A lot of us, it's not intended, but we want to get in there and get her done, but to stop a minute and figure out, how can we support lifting up those voices in our community? It does take a little time. All right. There's a lot. Oh my goodness, right? Any other questions, comments, cool stories to share? Otherwise, again, you will next week. Shelley, do you want to take us out? And I'm just going to, logistically, you will get next week a survey. One of the things about the survey is it will ask you if you want to opt out of having your local league, your name shared among local leaders. We would like to this year share local league leaders with each other so that all the presidents have the president's people and all the treasurers of the treasurer people, and so that there can be more networking, but we will provide an opt-out on that survey. All right, so thank you. Shelley, do you want to lead us out? You're muted, my dear. You're muted, Shelley. Shelley.
I wanted to recognize again all the stories, and there are recordings also. I had from the our convention. We had a roundtable led by Colleen, and that is there's a recording of that, and that was wonderful. 3 leagues, I think it was Duluth, Colleen, and you Edina, and Woodbury, I think it was, but it was very
Wayzata.
lots of good comments. Oh, Wayzata, okay. a lot of good content. So it's just another place where you can listen, you all can listen. Again, there's networking and there's a good roundtable going, but you can make it maybe by the area, because there might be particular resources. You could make it you can throw it open by the say a book club or a issue, just like you said, allyship. That could be in that group. It could be requesting a speaker for that or some resources. But we can think of big in these when we look at these resources and these topics. And I can always, because that's part of my job, is to kind of go, yeah, wow, well, I think I know of a resource, or gee, did you find one? And so to keep that conversation with the state. But you guys, the programs are, yeah, they're wonderful. And I just wanted to say that I highlight everything that was shared today, and there's a lot of stuff that could have been shared. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, Shelley. And as we go out, I don't want to put her on the spot, but Lorene Dickert, you want to wave? So Lorene is our new, will be next week, our new administrative assistant, helping us out in the office, which will be tremendous. And so welcome to Lorene. And this is a great week for her to dive in. She's learning all about the league this week. So it was a good timing. So thank you, everybody. Be well.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Great.